Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the 5-day virtual summit. I am your host, Rosa Barrigad. I am an online business coach. I help aspiring and new virtual assistant create, launch, and grow their business. And this summit is brought to you by the Ghost Layer Show. So today we have an amazing topic, right? We are going to talk about something amazing that is going to change how you see things, your perspective. In the meantime, if you are here, before I introduce my next guest, if you are here, drop something in the comments. Let us know where you're watching us from, what city and state, so we can give you a shout out. So let me make sure that I am showing what I need to be showing before I introduce you to our next guest. I hope everyone is doing great in this pandemic and this staycation, stay at home, social distancing. If you're like me, a social butterfly and an extrovert, we're having a hard time being at home all the time. So make sure you get out, take a breath of fresh air when you can, whenever possible. Just making sure that show. Oh, yes, you guys can hear me. So let me share my screen real quick just to show you our next guest. I'm just waiting for it to show on my phone so I can see that you can see what I can see. So again, if you're here, make sure that you drop something in the comments and say hello so we can give you a shout out. And we're thanking you in advance for showing up and showing out during this 5-day of virtual learning during the summit. Okay, so I want you to know that the best of you actually comes from the moments of struggle, right? And this is what my next guest wants you to know too. As hard as that may sound, especially around this time with the COVID virus and everything else that's going on, some people are losing their jobs, some people are losing other benefits that they have. So think of yourself as a diamond, a bright, beautiful, and shiny diamond, right? But remember that before the diamond becomes that beautiful, shining object, right? It goes through a lot of pressure. It goes through extreme pressure. Your days actually of feeling like that, if you ever felt like that, because we all have felt like that at some point in our lives. So if you ever felt like that, if you're currently feeling like that, I'm here to tell you that we are hoping with this presentation, we're hoping to change that today in one way or another, even if it's just a tiny little bit, right? So with that being said, I would like to introduce you to my next guest. Her name is Natalie Clerger. She is a licensed life coach where she helps people overcome life difficulties from relationship dynamics to stress, you name it. She is also a mom. She is a philanthropist, and she is a huge believer in woman empowerment, especially in the community that we live in. So, Natalie, welcome.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
No, it's such an honor, such a pleasure. I was extremely excited to come on here with you guys. So I'm excited.
Gloria says hi. Hi, Gloria.
Hi, Gloria. Hi.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit what we're going to cover today?
Yes. So the 3 topics that we are going to skim over, because I did tell Rosa, these are very in-depth topics. So we could actually have a whole show just talking about these topics. But we're going to skim over them, and we're going to give you I'm going to give you guys some essential tips about breaking generational curses, generational patterns, trauma, however you guys want to categorize that. What is internal void, which usually comes from traumatic experiences, you name it. And then we're going to go into giving some tips about how to overcome those things and how to be a better person for a better tomorrow.
Awesome. So I'm going to leave you here. The floor is yours, and I'll be back when you're done.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, you guys. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to identify what generational curses are, generational trauma is, or generational patterns. We have to identify it. So, what generational patterns or generational curses, generational trauma, however you want to name it, is it's a set or a series or a specific event that happens to a generation prior to yours. So if we want to simplify it, we can go, let's say our grandparents, my grandparents, an example. If something happened to my grandmother, she then has had a traumatic experience. Let's say she doesn't get help for her traumatic experience. That traumatic experience turns and gets transitioned to her child. Let's say her child grows up, her child doesn't know anything about trauma, but has defense mechanisms due to the trauma that her mother experienced. So this kid is growing up, she has trauma because of the trauma her mother experienced, and that trauma is then passed down to that child. Okay, so generational curses, or cycles, or patterns, or trauma is usually a cause of something that happened to somebody in your family within your bloodline that then trickles down. Some examples of some, I have some notes here, guys. Some examples of like generational trauma. Not going into the big picture, but let's simplify it. Let's say, okay, these are all examples. So let's say my grandmother. Okay, let's say um, she was in an abusive relationship. So she got beat, she was verbally abused, cursed at, emotionally abused, right? And she did it because she had no other way to provide for herself. She was in marriage and she just had to accept it for what it was. Um, so then as a woman, right, I'm putting myself in my grandmother's shoes. As a woman, I'm enduring all this, this trauma, this emotional pain, abuse, um, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, whatever you want to name it, physical abuse. So I'm enduring it, right? When you go through those kind of things, you tend to psychologically change. That's it's just what it is. Psychologically, when you change the way you're thinking, because you have to put up a defense mechanism so that you don't get hurt, right? Because that's a human nature. We know, if, our senses. If somebody's going to hit us, we're going to quickly want to hit the person before they get to hit us, right? So that is a defense mechanism my body has now formed because I've been exposed to that so much, right? My child is now in turn seeing that. So they're seeing me get abused, they're seeing me this, and it becomes actually normalized to a child. When a child sees something so much, it gets normalized to them. So like, oh, okay, they don't see it, they don't end up seeing it as something that is bad because it's they grow up with it, they see it all the time. It's a pattern. They're being exposed. That's traumatic experiences. So now me as a woman going through that, I've built up all these defense mechanisms, and I'm so hostile, and I'm so cold. I'm not emotionally available, and I'm not seeking counsel outside of my household. Like I'm thinking that I'm strong enough, I can do this, and I'm not going outside of my house to seek professional counseling or help to help me with these experiences that I'm going through. So then the the acts that I do, my child is getting the repercussion of them. And so because I'm not emotionally available and I'm so blocked off from the hostility, my kid is reacting to my trauma. And so they don't even know that they're getting the effects of that trauma. They're getting that effect and it's normalized. So it becomes normalized because they're so exposed to it. So that is essentially in a nutshell what generational trauma or curses are. And the way we need to break that cycle is to become aware of it. Okay. So if screaming is not something that is normal, okay, you don't just go around the house screaming or lashing out at people. That is not something that you're supposed to do. We're not animals. Animals do that to protect themselves. We shouldn't be needing to do that to protect ourselves. So if that is something that is going on, that is not normal. So me as a child, I get older, I become educated, I go to school, and I start noting certain patterns, right? I become woke. I'm like, oh, my mom does that. Why does she do that? Oh, okay. She had trauma. Ah, and then so it takes you noticing, educating yourself, or noticing that something is off, something is not right. It takes somebody within the bloodline, okay, you guys, because then it trickles, like I'm saying, it's trickling, it's an effect, keeps going, keeps going. So it takes somebody to be present and woke and know that there's an issue, um, in order for there to be a change, in order for you to break that generational pattern, there needs to be an awareness. You need to be aware consciously of the cycle that has been going on. You need to be aware consciously of yourself to see if you haven't inhibited some of that stress, that trauma, that pain. You need to look at your behavior patterns. And once you can decode that, that is then when the generational curse has been broken, or the generational trauma, the cycle, the pattern has been broken. Now, then it's a conscious effort to continue to be present so that your mind doesn't sink back to what is normal. Okay, guys. So when trauma becomes normal within a family, you don't notice there's a problem because it's normal. Oh, that's just how my mom acts, or that's just how my grandma acts. You know what I mean? It's okay. Like, that's what they do. No, until you go outside and like, oh, why is your mom always screaming? Oh, that's not normal. No, it's not normal. You know what I mean? So once you become aware and cautious of what is going on, then you are able to break that. And I also recommend, sometimes it's not something that you can see on your own. Sometimes it takes an outside source. And that's why I always recommend therapy. I always recommend other services outside of our family, um, or just educating ourselves on certain things. Okay. The second question was, internal void. How can we fill internal void? Okay, guys. So I'm these topics are really in depth topics. So I am just, watering down on some of the things. If there's any questions or concerns, please feel free to write them down in the comment section. Email Rosa, email myself, angeliclovinggrace@gmail.com. So if there's any questions, you guys feel free to ask. At the end, too, we'll have a little Q&A. But internal void. First, we have to identify what internal void is. Internal void is, how can I say, it's like a hollow place. Like on the inside of you, you feel empty. You feel like something is missing, right? You feel like you feel distant. You feel like nobody gets you. You can be in a room with a whole bunch of people and you still feel by yourself. You still feel alone. Um, and you feel disconnected. You feel like, there's something inside of you that's just, you want to fill it in. Now, some people, they will use alcohol, they will use drugs, some people it's sex, it forms an addictive behavior because you try to feel on the inside, you try to feel good on the inside, you try to fill that void in with different substances because you're not understanding why that void is there. So let me just tell you how internal void begins. It usually stems from your childhood. Usually, um, if you are not, if your emotions or your feelings are not heard of and they're not taken into consideration, a lot of the times that can then create an internal void. Why? Because your parents or your guardians, whoever raised you, are not receptive. They don't understand your feelings. They're not asking you about your feelings. So, like when your kid is crying, instead of saying, "Stop crying, go sit in the corner," and da 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 da, it's better to go to your kid and be like, "What's wrong? What are you feeling?" When you get your feelings validated, um, then they make sense to you. When you grow up as an adult, and you've never had that experience of understanding your feelings, you're usually getting shut off or told to be quiet or told that you're being bad or da 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 da, da, making up, there's a whole bunch of things, a list of things that can go on. And when you're told these things as a child, your feelings are not validated. You feel like you're not being heard. And so that subconsciously stays in your mind, believe it or not, as an adult. And you want to speak out, but sometimes you don't want to speak out because you feel like you're going to be judged or you feel like the person's not going to understand where you're coming from. So instead of speaking and expressing yourself, you stay silent. And in that silence is what is internal voice because you're not able to comprehend your feelings. And sometimes, even if you can put a name on your feelings, you don't want to express it because you don't want to hurt nobody else. You don't want to make anybody feel less than what they are. You don't want to this. You don't, but you're not looking at yourself. People who have internal voice sometimes are way more compassionate to people outside than they are to themselves. So you have less compassion for yourself and more compassion for those outside of you. And in turn, you should really be nourishing yourself, loving yourself, giving yourself that compassion that you need in order to fill that void. Um, and so that it's usually a result of emotional neglect as a child. And a lot of people in Caribbean families, I can speak for the ones that I know, and I'm from a Caribbean family. A lot of the times we have parents who they probably have the best intentions for us, but because they weren't emotionally nurtured as children, they didn't really know how to emotionally nurture their children. So they were emotionally unavailable. And as a kid, you're looking for that love, you're looking for that care, but your parents have to work 24/7. And when they do come home, they're so exhausted. So they're pushing you to the side and you're just, you want that mommy daddy time or that quality time with your guardian that they cannot give you because they don't know how to give it to themselves. That is one of the patterns of internal void. It usually stems from childhood uh, emotional neglect, and it can happen later on in life, especially if you go through a traumatic situation and you don't get help for it. Um, that can definitely lead to that feeling of internal void. So yes, um, those are some of the things that actually come from generational curses, generational patterns, cycles, however you want to identify it, is um, internal void. And if anybody is feeling internal void, the best thing to do is to honestly find love within yourself, love yourself, nurture yourself, which leads to number three. Question was number three was how to look forward to brighter days. Brighter days, guys. Happiness is a choice within. Okay. And if you are experiencing internal void, if you are experiencing going through generational curses, these are things that you need to sit down with yourself and identify for yourself. Nobody can fill an internal void, no matter how many relationships you go through, right? No matter if you leave this guy, go to this guy, you leave this woman, go to this woman, leave this, whatever your preference is, that is not something anybody could ever fill. Okay. So that means that's something you have to look in and look for therapy, therapeutic services or journal. Try to find out the core reason as to why you're feeling the way you are feeling. And once you can identify those patterns, um, especially with the generational curses, once you can identify certain patterns, that is the day that your life starts to change. That is the day you start looking forward towards brighter days. And one of the things that both these topics require is that you sit with your emotions, that you are able to sit with yourself. And that's scary. That's another thing too, you guys. These are big topics. So people take years and years to overcome these things or to come to an acceptance, okay, of these things. And not for one second can I say this is easy. I've been through them myself and I still go through them. Um, these things are things that take time. And you may think that patterns, just patterns within themselves that are embedded, they take time to reprogram your mind, to look at life a different way, to look at things a different way. Those things take time for us to overcome. So looking forward towards brighter days is seeking, if you know that you have a pattern in your life where you keep repeating the same things. You know, if there's like let's say you're dating a guy and you tend to date the same type of guy, like you feel like you're trying the same type of cycle continues. There is a root to that. And you can be the change that you want to see. Change doesn't just happen overnight, you guys. It takes time. It takes a lot of work, effort, emotions, energies. And sometimes it's easier to just block the emotions off and be like, okay, I don't care. You know what I mean? And continue with your life. But guess what? Those things are going to come back up later on. Whenever you do not deal with certain emotions, they will come back later on. So looking forward towards brighter days, you guys, just like Rose had started, you are a diamond in the dirt. If you are experiencing any of these problems, any of these issues, look deep within yourself, sit down with yourself, be honest with yourself, because sometimes it's really hard. And write these things down, seek counsel, seek therapy, and you will see after the storm, the sun will and must shine again. So the wheel just keeps turning and turning and turning. And be that breakthrough in your family, in that bloodline. Do what is undone or what has been done. You can undo it, starting with you. Thank you, guys. This is going to be the question and answers segment.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Oh my God, I was here taking notes. So let me go back to the comments here. So the beginning, Gloria said hi. Hi, Chantel. She said hi.
Hi, Chantel.
So Alheri says, can generational, I guess she joined us after you started. Can generational trauma cause internal void?
Yes,
And the answer
definitely.
was yes.
Yes, and I think if you looked at the beginning, I talked about it's a trickle effect. You know, it's a trickle effect. It does.
Let's see. Gloria has a good one. She has experienced caregivers telling their child what happens in the household stays in the household, right? Well, especially when we're from the Caribbean, we hear that a lot. You don't show your dirty laundry to the public. So therefore, Gloria is saying generational patterns, traumas are not discussed or even disclosed. So what advice can you give to someone who may have been raised in that way?
So, Gloria, that's a wonderful question. I was actually raised that way. No funk. In a lot of Caribbean families. And let me just tell you where it comes from. This is bigger than us. This stems all the way back to slavery. A lot of our trauma stems back to slavery. Think about it. Here's an example. You have a Black mother. I'm a Black mother. And I have a slave owner, right? I have a master. I have a child here. And my child is doing so well, and the slave owner notices that, right? As a mother, the slave owner is like, well, your child's doing so good, blah, blah, blah. What are they going to do? They're going to take my baby away from me, right? And they're going to sell my baby. As a mother, even though I'm proud, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay silent about that. I'm going to say, no, my kid's not doing good. You know, he's still got to do better to minimize my kid's value, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my kid doesn't understand that. It doesn't get translated that way to my kid. So therefore, in my kid's mind, he's thinking, oh, I'm not doing good enough for my mom. But he doesn't know the secret. I don't want you to get sold to this white slave master. So therefore, I'm going to make you not look too good in the public eye and stuff like that. So usually I find it in Black. What was, Rosa, can you put the question up again, please?
Sure. What happens in the household stays in the household. You don't air out your dirty laundry to the public.
And
they don't discuss trauma or disclose it.
Well, sometimes another thing too. Sometimes families don't even know that they have trauma. It takes you doing the research, doing the work, being woke, being educated to understand that there's trauma going on. You know what I mean? Sometimes the trauma is not even aware, which is why it becomes a generational curse. You know what I mean? Because they're not even aware. And my best advice would just be to seek therapeutic counseling. And you have to distance yourself. You can only work on yourself. Nobody else. You're only in control of yourself. I can't control my grandma who has had the trauma. I can't control my mom who has had the trauma. I can only control myself and grow from there. So my best advice would be to go within yourself first, seek your own advice, your own personal, therapeutic services. Try to get that in order first before you can actually, you know what I mean? Because therapists here, they have rules. We have HIPAA. We can't just go out there spreading your business. So it's not like you're telling the world your business. You're telling one specific professional person, you know what I mean? That can actually help you with certain things. So that's my best advice, Gloria. I hope I answered you right.
Let's see, Alheris. So Alheris says, I feel this issue is with dealing with feelings is so hard to address because where do you begin? So many people with internal void, having kids and not knowing how to address their children's feelings because they themselves can't deal with their own feelings. And that goes back to what you were saying about deal with your own stuff first.
So in order for us to be, and that's one of the reasons too, that when I started digging in deep into my generational trauma, I had to do is identify my feelings, because I was very outspoken, but when it came to my feelings, I didn't know how to express it. It was like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Like, but I was a very outspoken person. So one of the things to be the best parent that you can be is to identify what you are going through. And if you are aware, as long as you're aware of it, you guys, you're already starting off on a great path, because you're aware that, hey, I have problems expressing my feelings or trying to express myself. You seek help. You know what I mean? There are people who are professionally trained, who go to school to study these things, so they know how to help you. And it's a conscious effort. You have to continuously want that change, you know what I mean, to continue changing. So you start dealing with your child different. Don't push your child off to the side. Be like, no, come over here and we'll talk. Like, what's wrong? What are you feeling? Why are you crying? We have to ask our children, not just guess or push them away. You know what I mean? So then we're making that effort.
So thank you. Lenny says, hi, great information.
Hi, Lenny.
Thank you, Lenny, for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, Gloria says, great question. She has learned as a parent that it's okay she said, it's okay for me to be vulnerable and say, this is new territory for me. I don't know the answer to these questions. So if a child comes to you or something's coming up, Gloria's saying that it's okay to say, this is new to me. I don't have all the answers. And this will allow your child to see you as a human and not as and are not presenting as a know-it-all.
Yes and no. So there's like a thin line between that one, because it's like it's depending on the child's age too and their comprehension, because we are their leaders. You know what I mean? Yes, we are human, but we're their parents. We're supposed to guide them. And it's depending what they're coming to you with and what age they are. Sometimes they might not understand that. You know what I mean? They might take it as, oh, okay, well, because our problem is not supposed to be their problem. Like our kids are not our therapists. You know what I mean? And that sometimes that puts a burden on them. Like, oh, because we're the parents. You know what I mean? We're put in that higher position to take care of them, to understand them, to provide them what they need to be provided with. You know what I mean? So it's depending the child's age and what is it that's being come up. But it is okay for a parent to be vulnerable in front of a child. Yes, absolutely.
I know sometimes I tell my son that, and he's 14 now, but I'm like, I don't know, Jonathan. And then he's like, but you're the mom. You're supposed to know everything.
No, I'm only human.
Okay. So Samantha says, people should read this post-traumatic slave syndrome article by Dr. Joy DeGruy. I don't know if I'm saying the last name right. They discuss a lot of the areas addressed here today. So guys, if you have a moment, go check that article or book or written thing from this person. I'm gonna check it out too.
Yeah, no, it's good. I believe I've read about her. She's really good. She's really good.
Oh, it's a woman.
Yeah, it's a woman, I believe. Yes.
Dr. Joy. I love that name, Joy. So if there's any other questions, You can post them in the comments. So how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to connect with you after today?
So my website is www.angeliclovinggrace.org. I have a whole bunch of list of things, but I have a lot of experience with life coaching and relationship aspects. So I am there. You can catch me on there. You guys can also email me at angeliclovinggrace@gmail.com. I answer questions. I talk back to you. We can do video calls like this. So I'm always open to helping people. So that's my calling.
Are you on Facebook and Instagram if somebody wanted to follow you?
I am on Facebook under my name, Natalie Clerger. On my Instagram, I believe it's _ Angelic Loving Grace.
Let me type it here. Angelic Loving Grace. So you provide life coaching. Do you do anything else or
so in my career, products? So my career, you guys, I work with people with mental disabilities all the time. So I have experience on this. Just a disclaimer, I am not a licensed therapist. I do have degrees in psychology. I have degrees in human services. So I have knowledge and I have my own personal life knowledge. I would always recommend for clinical stuff, I would recommend doctors and, licensed therapists or licensed professionals. Mm-hmm. But in terms of advice, talking, coaching, I am there for you guys 100%. And you can find me through the avenues we just listed. Also on my website, I do have a skincare line, organic skincare line that I actually chose the ingredients for it. You can find that on the website. I have other holistic methods of healing that I provide there along with the life coaching services.
So. Awesome. Samantha said something. Let me go to the comment. So
it's a book.
The thing that I call an article is a book that she mentioned. It's called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And she was nice enough to post the link from eBay there so you can find it. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you so much.
That's the link. Well, thank you, Natalie, for being here today and for sharing all this knowledge with us. We totally appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, guys, we'll be back at 6 p.m. with another guest.
Bye.
So, see you, Natalie.
See you.
So we'll be back at 6 p.m. today with another guest, and the topic has to do with how to help your college student. Oh, let me remove this banner. How to help your college student navigate, the college process application, and how to help them when it comes to their self-care. Okay, so tune in at 6 p.m. I will see you here soon. Take care, guys.